Are you guys ready to get this guy done? Because I am. Today we are going to finish up our part 2 of Parker the Polar Bear. Here is our finished part 1. We have the muzzle, ears, head, and body. And remember, I had a little bit of a funny nose because of my backing, so he looks a tad bit different than the first guy in the picture. We are going to work on his front legs, back legs, his scarf, and then his assembly. So let's get started. Grab your yarn, your hook, and a stitch marker, and we're going to get started with one of our front legs. We are going to make 6 single crochet into a magic circle, so do that however you'd like. Here I'm making a slip knot and I'm going to chain 2. You can go back to the first video if you need this a tad bit slower, or I will link some videos down below. So here I'm getting set up with my work. I am going to make a chain 1, and then I'm going to chain 1 again. I'm going to make 6 single crochet into that second chain from the hook. So here's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. From here, I am just going to tighten up this hole, and then I'm going to place my stitch marker on the last stitch of the round. So we'll have 6 stitches at this point here, counting 4, 5, and 6, and that little bit there is just your part from the slip knot. So for round 2, we are going to make an increase in that first stitch, a single crochet in the next, and we'll repeat that 3 times. Going into my first stitch, I'm going to make an increase, which is 2 single crochet into the same stitch. So here is single crochet 1. Going back through that stitch, I'm going to make another single crochet. Then I'm going to move over a stitch and make 1 single crochet. Move over, make my increase. Here is 1 single crochet 2. Move over for a single crochet. And then we're going to make our last increase and then end with a single crochet. At the end of round 2, you'll have 9 stitches. I'm going to change my stitch marker. I'm going to close up this hole again. And then for round 3, we are going to make an increase in the first stitch, single crochet in the next 2 stitches. We'll repeat that 3 times. Here is our first increase. Single crochet in the next 2, so we have our first single crochet, move over, make another single crochet. I'm going to redo that. I got a little caught up. Okay, here is our second increase. Single crochet in the next 2 stitches. And then here's our third increase. Single crochet in your last 2. My work is starting to turn in on me because it kind of turns in on my finger, so I just want to push that back out. I'm going to tighten up my magic circle one more time, change my stitch marker. At this point, you'll have 12 stitches, so you can count if you need to. For round 4, we're going to make a decrease and then single crochet in the next 2 stitches. Here is our first decrease. Single crochet in the next 2, and if you need a refresher on the decrease, I will put that video down below. Here is our second decrease. Single crochet in the next 2. And then our last decrease. Single crochet in the next 2. At the end of round 4, you'll have 9 stitches. I'm just going to put that little magic circle bit in there. And then I'm going to change my stitch marker. If you have another stitch marker, that would be great to use because we're going to add a little bit of stuffing. We don't want to lose our spot. We are going to stuff this little hand here, and then we're not going to stuff anymore. So you only need just a tiny bit of stuffing. The one thing I do recommend is try to take 2 bunches of the same amount of stuffing because you're going to make 2 of the front legs and you want to make sure that they're about the same size. And that's good enough. It doesn't have to be too much, just enough to fill that hole. So we're going to move on with a few more rounds. For round 5, we are going to make a decrease and then a single crochet. And we'll repeat that 3 times. Here is our first decrease. Then we'll move over to make a single crochet. Our second decrease. Move over for a single crochet. And then our third decrease ending with a single crochet. At the end of round 5, you'll have 6 stitches. Change your stitch marker. From round 6 through 12, all we're going to do is just single crochet around each of the stitches. So we have 6 stitches. I am going to show you a little trick that I like to use when we are crocheting a lot of single crochet rounds, because it does kind of get a little tiring to count every single round. So I'm just going to start with round 6. So I'm going to do a few stitches. So here I'm just single crocheting around. After about 2 or 3 stitches, grab your stitch marker and place it horizontally on one of your stitches. So I'm kind of going through that V that is facing me. Continue to crochet all the way around like normal. And then when you get to your last stitch, change your stitch marker as you usually would. Now we're starting round 7. I'm going to do a few stitches just to show you. So here we're just single crocheting. And when it's time to count, it's really easy to count here because you know that you placed your stitch marker on round 6. So you'll count 6, 7, 8, all the way up through 12. So this will save you a lot of time because sometimes when we start with 3, it's hard to see and count your rounds going up. So try this trick, go ahead and crochet all the way to the end of round 12 and then we will meet back. I'm doing my last 2 stitches of round 12, working into my stitch marker. And then from here, I'll show you I have 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, and I finished with 12. So we are done. Take out that extra stitch marker and then your regular one. We're going to leave a long tail for assembly, so give that a cut. And then we're just going to fasten off. So I'm going to yarn over and then pull all the way through. I like to close my pieces shut like I have said before. So I'm going to grab a yarn needle and just weave my yarn in. I'm going to go a next stitch over and just pull that little bit right through. So on the foot, there is this little bit of a divot here, and that's because we did a decrease. And if you don't see it, that's totally fine. I just personally like to close up my piece and put that divot in the front so that it looks like he's kind of sitting on his hands. Here, I'm just going to grab a stitch or 2. It's nothing special. You can just go through a stitch on one side and then one through the other, and then I'm just going to go back the other way and go through a stitch. I just like it to be a tad bit closed, and that's just my preference. Now that we are done with that foot, you can stop the video, rewind it, and go ahead and make one more foot, or front leg I should say, and then we'll meet back for the back leg. Starting with the back leg, we are going to make 6 single crochet into a magic circle. So I'm going to do my normal slip knot and then chain 2, single crochet, and the second chain from the hook. So I'm going to single crochet in that second chain from the hook 6 times, or feel free to do whichever way you like. So I'm just making sure I have 6, and I'm going to close up that middle circle. I'm going to fan out my stitches a little bit, and then I'm going to place a stitch marker on that last stitch of the round. For round 2, we're doing the same thing we did for the front legs. We're going to do an increase in the first stitch, a single crochet in the next, and repeat that. So here is a increase, making 2 single crochet into the same stitch. Move over and make our single crochet, increase, single crochet, our third and last increase, and then ending with a single crochet. At the end of round 2, you'll have 9 stitches. I'm going to redo that one. And then I'm going to just fan my stitches out because they are turning in on me again. Close up that middle circle, change your stitch marker. For round 3, we are going to make an increase in the first stitch, single crochet in the next 2, and we'll repeat that 3 times. Here is an increase, single crochet in the next 2 stitches. Here's 1 and 2. I keep fanning out my stitches. As you can see, here's an increase, single crochet in the next 2, and then our last increase, single crochet in the next 2. I think people get tripped up with the work turning in on itself. You just constantly have to turn it the right way from the beginning. So just keep on turning it and it'll eventually stop doing that on you. So at the end of round 3, we have 12 stitches. For round 4, we're going to make an increase in the first stitch, single crochet in the next 3, repeating that 3 times. Here's our increase, single crochet in the next 3 stitches. Sorry, my yarn is just getting really caught up with this. Here is 1, 2, and 3, and then we're going to make another increase, single crochet in the next 3, our last increase, single crochet in the next 3. At the end of round 4, we'll have 15 stitches. Change your stitch marker. For round 5, we're going to make 1 decrease, single crochet in the next 3. So here is decrease 1, single crochet in the next 3, here is our second decrease. If you need to tuck that guy in, you can. He can get a little in the way. Single crochet in the next 3, and then we'll make our last decrease, ending with 3 single crochet. At the end of round 5, we'll have 12 stitches. Moving on to round 6, we are going to make a decrease and then single crochet in the next 2. Repeat that 3 times. So here is our first decrease, single crochet in the next 2, our second decrease, single crochet in the next 2, and then end with a decrease, single crochet in the next 2. At the end of this round, we will have 9 stitches. We are going to add on this extra stitch marker just to hang on to that working yarn, and just grab another little bit of stuffing, and we are just going to stuff that foot. We aren't going to add any more after this, so just place a little bit in there and then grab a matching piece for your next one. You might need to add it and then pop it back out just to see about how much you used. And you don't have to do this, you can eyeball it when you do it. But if you're just starting out and you want to make sure that they're about even, you can just pop out that piece, see how big it is, and then pop it back in. Don't forget to change your stitch marker. Okay, moving on to round 7, we are going to make a decrease in the first stitch, a single crochet in the next. Here is our first decrease, single crochet in the next stitch, and then go ahead and continue with a decrease and a single crochet. Okay, at the end of round 7, you will have 6 stitches. For round 8, 9, and 10, we are going to single crochet around our 6 stitches. If you want to do that same trick that I showed you with the front legs, feel free to do that. Go ahead and crochet 3 rounds of 6 stitches and then we will meet back. Okay, I'm working on my last few stitches of round 10. I'm just going to count my rounds here really quick. We're going to fasten off, so leave a long tail. We're going to yarn over and pull the yarn all the way through. I'm going to get my yarn needle and I'm just going to close up this leg. I'm going to just go a stitch next to it to pull in my fasten off. And then I'm just going to grab a stitch, one on each side, and then just go through 2 different stitches. Okay, so you can place that to the side. You're going to go ahead and rewind the video, make one more back leg, and then we will meet back for the scarf. We're going to make the scarf. Go ahead and grab any color yarn, worsted weight that you have. We're just going to make a chain and add some single crochets and some fringe at the end to make it a little more interesting. Make a slip knot. For the pattern, it says to chain 80. You can make this shorter, longer, however you'd like. So you're just going to chain 80. I'm just going to chain a few just to show you. And I realized as I went back to watch this that I only did my chains in round 1 and I forgot to show doing the chain 1 and turn. So I really do apologize for that. So here is the first chain from the hook. You're going to go into that second chain from the hook. And all you're going to do is go under that top loop and just single crochet all the way across. So I'm just going to move over and single crochet. What I didn't show is when I got to the end of the row, I made a chain 1, I turned my work, and I single crocheted across one more time. Now if you don't know how to chain 1 and turn, don't worry about it. Just end it here like I did. Cut off a bit of yarn and then fasten off by yarning over and pulling through. Again, I do apologize. I don't know why I did that. This is what the double single crochet will look like, so it'll be a little bit wider. But if you don't feel comfortable chaining 1 and turning, just end it here. And then I'll show you how I weaved in my ends. So you're just going to weave in your yarn needle and just go under a little bit of the yarn and just try to weave in that end piece the best you can. Now on to making the fringe. So if you have a single layer, just grab 2 pieces of yarn, but if you have the double layer, the double single crochet, go ahead and grab 3. So I cut about 6 pieces of yarn that are 3 inches long. I am going to place my hook into a corner bit of the end of my scarf. I'm just going to place it in there, and then I'm going to place my piece of yarn in the middle. I'm going to hook it on there right in the middle. I'm going to pull it through, and then I'm just going to yarn over and pull both of those pieces through. And it's giving me a hard time. I'm going to show you a different way, the way that I usually do it, which is a lot easier for me. So I'm going to add one more piece, insert your hook, add that yarn right in the middle, and then pull the yarn all the way through. What I usually do is pull it so I have a big loop, and I just grab the yarn with my fingers. For me, that just is so much easier. So now if you only have 1 row of single crochet, just add 2 pieces of fringe. If you have more space, add 1 more piece. You're going to do the same exact thing on the other side so that both sides have some fringe. And then I like to get it a little bit curly, so I grab my yarn needle and I just kind of go through my yarn and just give it a little bit of a curly look. That is it. Your scarf is done. You can place that to the side as we do our assembly, and then we will add that to him at the end. Assembly time! Woohoo! Grab your head and your ears. We are going to get started by attaching those first. Grab some pins as well because we're going to be using a lot of those. In my pattern, it says to attach the ears between round 3 and 8. So here's round 3. I'm going to place a pin. And I'm going to grab another one and just count from 3 down to 8. I'm just going to get an idea of how this looks. So go ahead and add your pins, and then you can pin your ears to see what placement you like the best. In my pattern, it's just a guideline. It's just a guideline for me as I make more, and for you to kind of get an idea where you may want it, but you can also put them higher, lower. It doesn't matter. Whatever looks good to you is where you should attach it. I'm pretty happy with my placement here, so I am going to pop off my other ear before I get started, and then I will grab my yarn needle. Go ahead and weave your yarn through your yarn needle. We're going to get started by going through a stitch of the head. I'm just going to scooch this guy over. I'm going to hold my head to the side, and I'm going to grab a stitch underneath the head. So we're just going underneath one. I'm going to pull that all the way through, and then I'm going to go from behind the ear, and this can get a little tricky to show you, but let me just do my best. I'm going to go back through a stitch of the head from behind, and then I'm going to pull that all the way through. Then I'm going to go through a stitch of the ear, that corner stitch, and I'm going to go underneath both of the stitches. And when you close up your ears, it makes this a little bit easier. So let me show you here. You're going to go underneath both stitches. You want to make sure that you're grabbing both at the same time. Pull that all the way through. Keep checking as you add stitches because you want to make sure that you're on the right track of where you'd like your ear to be. So now I'm going to move over a stitch, and I'm going to grab a piece through the head, and I'm going to pull that all the way through. And then I'm going to go through the front stitch of my ear, making sure to grab both. Now, if you've watched other videos and I've attached ears different ways and you like that better, feel free to do that. I'm going to move over a stitch here, pull it through the head, and then go through the front of my ear. I'm going to be continuing this all the way until the end, going through a stitch of the head and then through a stitch of the ear. So here I go. I see where I went last, and then I just go up one round, pull it through, and then give it a little tug at the end because you want to make that tight. I'm going to go through a stitch of the ear. I'm going to go one more time, a stitch of the head. This one was tripping me up. And then I'm going to go through a stitch of the ear. This is kind of like the corner. I want to grab that corner piece. I'm just going to do a little shaping here, and then what I like to do is make a knot after I attach my pieces, and this is something that you do not have to do. It's just something that I like to do for security of my pieces. So I'm going to grab a piece of yarn in the back. It can be anything. It can be this piece, it can be something in the head, it doesn't matter. Go ahead and pull that all the way through. And you want to leave a loop at the end, so I like to go slow. And then once you have that loop, you want to go behind the loop and then just pull that through. I do like the seesaw motion to kind of get that knot started. And don't worry if the knot is long because you're going to just weave that right through. So I go as close to the knot as I can, and I weave that yarn through my head, and then I pull tight to kind of pull that knot through. And then you can just weave in your yarn as usual. If the knot life is not for you, I don't blame you. It's an extra step. You can just weave in your yarn really, really well and then avoid making the knot. If this is for an adult, you don't have to make the knot. If this is for a kid, I would suggest it because they do tend to get those pieces somehow. I don't know how, just undone. Okay, so one ear is done. We're gonna go ahead and add the second one. I'm gonna speed up this part a little bit so that we're not here forever in the video, but it's the same concept. So here I'm going through the head again, and then remember I'm gonna go through a stitch of the head one more time. I'm just moving up around. Then go through a stitch of the ear. Okay, I'm going to slow it down because I did my last stitch. I'm going to pick up a piece of yarn. I'm going to pull that all the way through until I have a loop. And then I'm going to go behind my loop. The loops can get a little crazy, so I'm going to seesaw this shut and then weave in really close to my ear. I just wanted to show you that knot one more time. Cut off the excess yarn and then your ears are attached. I just like to do a little bit of smushing and moving and doing all the things. Right now it kind of looks like a mouse. So if you want to make a mouse, you can do that as well. We're going to move on to the body next. In my pattern, it says to attach the body between round 17 and 18. And what I like to do is just place it right down the middle of the head. And then I stretch out the body as I add the pins. And I'll show you that here. So I have him centered. I'm going to grab a pin. I'm going to place the pin underneath the stitch of the body. And then I like to just pull it out a bit and then attach it to the head. So I am pulling and pinning. I go about every 2 stitches. I'll pull and pin. Now that you're all attached and everything looks secure and you're happy with how it looks, grab that yarn needle, weave through your yarn, and then we're going to go ahead and grab a stitch of the head. So I'm going to always go through a stitch of the head. And now I like to go upside down here. I'm going to grab a stitch of the body and make sure that you go through both loops of that stitch. So pull tight, and then as you go around, just pull out those pins. So now I'm going to move over a stitch, pull that through, and then go through my next stitch of the body. Make sure that you never miss a stitch of the body because you'll really be able to see that when you're all done. If you need to grab 2 stitches of the head, you can do that. If you feel like there's too many stitches in the head and not enough in the body, you can grab 2 stitches of the head, but just never miss a stitch of the body. Make sure you pull tight, and then also make sure that every 3 stitches or so that you're looking to make sure that your body's still in the middle, because as we're doing this, things shift easily. Continue to go all the way around by going through a stitch of the head and then a stitch of the body. Okay, I'm reaching the end. I have about 2 stitches left. So I'm grabbing a stitch of the head, gonna go through the body. And now I'm gonna grab another stitch, and then I'm gonna grab that last stitch of my head. So I'm gonna make my knot here, go slow on my last stitch, make a loop, and then pull that through. Weave in your yarn really well. I still always weave in my yarn really well, no matter if I made a knot or not. Knot or not. Okay, so we're going to cut off that excess yarn and do some smushing while we're at it. And I have to admit, he looks funny at this point. He is going to come together though, I promise. Okay, so we're going to move on to the front legs next. Grab those front legs, and then I just like to place them right next to each other, kind of like down the center of his nose, meeting in the middle. I like to have that divot in the front, if you remember, the one from our decrease, and I will just give this a pin. Go ahead and weave in your yarn needle. I kind of had to take things apart because I need to be able to show you better. So I'm going to place my leg back, and I'm going to put my pin down low because I want you to see what I'm doing, and you might need to do this as well. So grab a few pins, and then go ahead and get your yarn needle and weave in your yarn. What I like to do is grab a stitch of the head. So you're going to grab one of those stitches between the head and the body, and I'm going to pull that through. Then I'm going to go through a stitch of my leg, and you want to make sure to go under both of those stitches. Then you want to go through a stitch of the head, again, the head and the body. And you want to pull really tight. I didn't pull that tight here, so it kind of caused a problem later. So here, make sure you pull tight and then go through another stitch of the leg again. And I'm struggling here. Attaching on video is completely different than attaching when you're not on video. Okay, so pull tight, and then I'm going to grab one more stitch here. And I'm going to grab this little corner bit. It's not exactly a stitch, it's more like a side stitch. And I like to grab that side stitch because then it'll stay in place. So I'm doing my slow knot here. I'm making a loop, and I'm going behind the loop just to pull in that knot. Now I'm going to weave in my piece and then cut off the excess yarn. Okay, one arm is done, and we're going to grab that second arm, and I'm going to do the same thing. If it's easier for you to go from the outside to the inside, feel free to do that as well. Or if you have a specific way that you just like to do it. Okay, so everything is kind of here. I kind of encroach on my other leg, so don't worry if you have to go and grab another stitch from the other side. I really like to go and move over. It's just sometimes helpful to hold that leg. So I'm going through a stitch of the body, and then I'm going through a stitch of the leg. Now, if you can get the motion, I would suggest to go through a stitch of the head and the leg at the same time. You may not know what I'm saying, but let me see if I do it here. Going through a stitch of the head, and then a stitch of the body. Sometimes doing one motion instead of two can just go a little bit more seamless, but I'm trying to really show you each step. So I'm going to grab a little bit of my head and body. And now I'm going to make my knot here. So I'm going to make that loop, and then I'm just going to weave it in after I make the knot. Okay, so our legs are attached and things are looking good. That did get a little bit loose, so make sure you pull tight because my leg is a little bit loose on that inner part, but that's okay because our scarf is going to hide a lot of that stuff. So don't worry if your assembly isn't exactly perfect. It's never perfect. Mine always looks kind of funny, but scarves and fun stuff like that is really nice for hiding things. So moving on to our back feet, I just like them to kind of come out to the side. If you don't like that, you can have them going in a different direction, but I just have them right underneath the body coming straight out to the side. So I pin those in place and make sure that I'm happy with how they look. So I think he's looking pretty good, and we'll go ahead and start attaching. Okay, I took out that other leg, so he's out of the way. I'm going to add my yarn needle, and then we're going to do the same thing. We're just going to go through the body first, and then we're going to go up through a stitch. Now this is what I was talking about in going through one motion. If you go through the body and then you go through a stitch of the leg, it just makes things a bit easier because you're not having to pull through the body and then through a stitch of the leg. So if you can do this like seamless motion, you may feel like assembly is a nicer experience because assembly can be pretty rough. So sometimes it's tough to pull it all through one thing, but if you can, give it a whirl. So now I'm going through the body here, and I'm kind of coming through because I want to grab this little side stitch here just so I know that that'll stay in place. So I'm leaving my loop, going behind my loop and pulling through for my knot. And if you're not making that knot, you just go ahead and weave your yarn right through. So weave it through, and then we'll cut off the excess piece. Same thing with your other leg. Get it into position and make sure that you're still liking how it looks before you attach it. We're going to get started by going through a stitch of the body and then a stitch of the leg. So just continue like you did on the other side. Okay, after you cut off that excess yarn, your legs are in place and your arms are in place and everything is ready. So now we just have to add the scarf and he will be complete. Okay, now our friend is ready for his scarf, so just grab the one that you made. And again, I'm sorry about not showing that chain one and turn, but either way, it will look adorable. So I make it very long so that I can wrap it around once, and then I just make a knot in the front. Let that fringe fly and place it wherever you'd like. And now he's nice and cozy for that winter storm that we will all be getting, that they keep talking about on the news. But he can handle it because he's a polar bear. Thank you guys for joining me on this crochet along. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. Please subscribe for more crochet alongs and crochet tutorials in the near future. And again, Happy New Year, and I'll see y'all guys soon. Head over to yarnsociety.com for free crochet patterns.